Thank you, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started. And can everybody see my screen? Okay, experiencing the social emotional side of learning looks okay. Very good. As we go throughout the call today, we're just a couple things. You can participate in one of three ways. There's going to be times where you can share and talk, so feel free to unmute your mic and join in the conversation. We'd love to hear from you. Also, there's going to be a couple times where we're going to be using the chat feature, so just make sure you have that up and you can see what people are saying there as well. But also, if you just want to be a part of this call and you just want to listen, please don't feel compelled to talk or chat or whatever. Just be a part of it by listening in and that sort of thing. So I don't want you to feel any pressure there. For the last couple sessions, excuse me, we talked about a couple things, and I thought it might be kind of cool just before we get started, just to recap some of those different things. First of all, we talked about the first week making it intentional, and social emotional learning, if we're going to do it well, it's got to be intentional. We talked about that there's an informal side and way of thinking about it, and there's a formal side. The informal side is all about the heart. It's the things that we do naturally in a relational model to be able to help students connect, to connect with staff. We could not do our jobs without it, and so it's a huge part. And there's all those strategies that are very intentional. The more intentional we make it, the more effective we make it. So that's one way of thinking about it. There's also the formal side, and the formal side is where the framework is. We need to have the informal because that's where the heart is, but we also need to have the formal strategies and the frameworks around social emotional learning because we can't measure it without that. And our job really is to make sure that the formal things that we do have that heart of the informal side as well. And then we're talking about some different components about social emotional learning and how do we make it effective. And one of those is that it has to be experienced. And that in the midst of experience, and since everything that we learn is filtered through a social emotional lens, then getting really good at offering experiences, because the competencies of social emotional learning, self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision making do not transfer well cognitively. And so when we have an experience, we can reflect on it, we can learn from it. Then what we learn, we can apply. What we apply, we can practice. And practice is where skills are developed. So today is all about another component of social emotional learning, is that it must be modeled, and we must be modeling those things that we believe, and that's going to come out. So here's a first opportunity. I would love to know if you agree or disagree with this. I just want to throw out a question. Not only agree or disagree, but if you want to talk about it, how or why do you agree or disagree? So this is a statement. I've heard it said over the last few weeks that when we come out of this experience that we're all having, when we surface from that, there's going to be a higher need for social emotional learning in schools. And so I would love to know if you agree or disagree. Okay, thank you, Tiffany. There's a yes. Maggie, you're there a little bit. Agree, disagree? Okay. Most people agreeing. Absolutely. Absolutely. Agree. I agree. Very good. And so thank you very much. That we agree. Maggie, you're kind of right here. Does anybody want to share really quick? What is it? I'll read this. People have different experiences. Yeah. All these different experiences are going to have to be processed, right? Does anybody want to share why they agree, or Maggie, where you are?
Yeah, I think the reason that I'm like kind of not quite there is because with my student population, I just see that the need was already so high. So yeah. I'm not sure, I'm not sure that it's going to make that big of a difference.
Sure. Sure. So something for you is something that we should have already been doing, something that we are already doing, and that this is maybe just one more experience that's going to make it even it's going to verify how important it is. I think all those things are correct. I think if we, let me read this real quick. Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Lisa. Do we know yet? I haven't heard. Um, are we finishing out the school year this way, or are students coming back? Does anybody know?
We've heard that they're probably, they said softly they are not coming back in our Coeur d'Alene area.
Okay, okay. Man, I was thinking about it. God, I really wish they do, just because of what Lisa just said. I would love it if, even if it were 2 weeks, if we could reacclimate this year and get back a little bit of that routine before getting it. I would love to be able to do that. I don't know if it's possible, but it's gonna be tricky. So moving on with that, the reason I bring that up is because part of this is a response to, during this time, we're going to definitely, all the different emotions and things that students and staff are experiencing are going to be needing to be processed. And so we recognize that social emotional learning allows us to be able to do that. But also, one of the things I would like to just kind of throw out there and discuss is that part of this is also an understanding that we have about social emotional learning. And one of the things I think we need to be careful about is, what do we believe about it, and what do we understand it to, what needs we understand it is meeting for us, because we are always going to model what we believe. And I think a lot of times we have a tendency to separate um, our social emotional learning and who it's for. So let me ask a follow-up question really quick. I'm supposed to be moving this along. Oh, no, not yet. So the follow-up question is this: what do we understand as the need for social emotional learning? Would anybody like to share? What do we understand as the need for it? Any thoughts? Well, it takes a little while to type. If nobody has a thought, we'll just move on. Okay. Okay, thank you. Social emotional learning allows us to be able to share this need for belonging and fill that need. Absolutely. And so then if we look at even just that, and thank you, Tiffany, very much, the soft skills we need to be successful, absolutely. And then we start thinking about, who is that for? One of the things that we have to be careful about, we understand. Yeah, very good. Thank you, Lisa. And we know that through social emotional learning, we get to provide a protective learning environment where everyone can. And one of the things I love about this is, any of the responses I've read so far aren't really targeting any specific group. One of the things we have to understand is, if we start targeting specific groups, and we think that only kids with trauma need to have social emotional learning, or kids who are dealing with mental health, or kids that are bullies, or kids that are being bullied, and a lot of times we get stuck in trying to address these certain issues, mental health, or even just, if we think that it's restricted to just students. All of those things are going to represent what we believe. And if we believe that it's for a certain group, I might separate myself from that group. And the problem is, there's a belief there that I don't need it, but other people do. What I believe, I'm going to model. And this is why it's so important, I believe, for us to understand that social emotional learning are the things that you are saying, that this is for us to create a protective learning environment, knowing that everybody's on the same page. We can't restrict the students over here, staff over here. Social emotional learning is for everybody, and it's how we go about providing that foundation. And we can't do that, and we can't model that if we start believing that it's only for a certain group. There was a school that wanted to use our core lessons, and they wanted to use it just for a specific group. And I asked, well, why would you just use it for this group? Well, they were the ones that were considered as a higher need. And I'm like, okay, great. Well, let's use it for them. It doesn't cost any more to use it for the whole school. And why would we restrict it? Because then we're going to separate people from the haves and the have-nots. And our campuses are already polarized enough. Let me read this. Yeah. And so thank you, Lisa. And I think everybody can read that. And so it is not just focused on students, but it's also something for staff, and understand that we all need those same levels of support when it comes to all of this. So modeling, we're always going to model what we believe, and everything that we believe is going to come out in in the things that we say and the things that we do. So let's look at this really quick. So what is modeling? Oops. Modeling is consciously exhibiting specific behavior. And that's really good. Let me ask you this. Is it possible to exhibit specific behavior, and even if it's the behavior that we want, can we exhibit specific behavior and still not be believable? See a few people nodding their heads and that sort of thing. Yeah, thank you. It's always so great when actually people do respond, because I don't know where we are with it. Yes, it is entirely possible. Just because I am, and there's a phrase called toe the line. Just because I'm stepping up to the line with everybody and saying I believe it, and one of the things I think that we have to add is that the things that we model, they must also be genuine. Because when it comes right down to it, we're going to genuinely model what we believe anyway. And so it's not just about modeling, it's about what do we understand as the need. And the more that we do that, then we're going to start modeling those kind of things. Let me ask you this, and I'll say this before we move on, that if we're not genuinely doing it, all credibility is lost. So a couple discussion questions. Who is it that should model social emotional learning, and why? What are some thoughts there? Okay, all of us, thank you. Everyone. Okay. It seems like for the most part, everybody's saying this is something that everybody should be modeling. The things that we model are the things that people are always going to follow, most likely. Everybody try this. Look in your screen, okay, and watch me if you would. And everybody go ahead and just pull up your fingers like this and make the OK sign if you would. Okay, so now that you have the OK sign, make sure you're looking at through the screen at me, and just listen. If you would please take I call this the okie dokie. If you didn't know that, this is the okie dokie sign. Take your okie dokie and then bring it closer to your face. As you do, go ahead and put it on your chin. Okay, very good. And so let me ask you, and I didn't get to see everybody. You can put your hands down now. Thank you. I didn't get to see everybody, but what do you presume most people did when I said that? Put it on their cheek, right? But I said, bring it down and put it on your chin. And most people did probably what it was that they saw, not necessarily what I said, because I gave you two very clear messages. Even if we are exhibiting things consciously, that is still a message being sent. What we're probably going to follow most often is what do we do? And it's so important. This is where we have those cliches that our actions speak louder than words. This is where we have the cliches of where the rubber meets the road. Walk the talk, talk the walk. Those kind of things. And so we get it, and we understand that everybody really should be modeling. And we have to understand what is it that we should be modeling. Let me ask you this then. What does it mean for staff? What does it mean for your school, okay, when staff model social emotional learning? What does it mean? Thank you. If I have, that's my next line. Thank you. Thank you, Jordan. Yeah, it really means respect. All the things that we talk about, kindness, openness, all compassion and understanding. When we do it, it matters. And Jordan said it already. It means everything, because what we model becomes the culture. I would say we cannot do social emotional learning, even if we have the informal, even if we have the formal, we cannot effectively do it if we're not modeling all the same behavior. And like Lisa said, speaking from the same language, being on the same page. And again, tomorrow is going to talk a lot about that. And if you've ever experienced some struggle getting everybody on the same page, tomorrow is definitely for you with that. And so one of the things that we have to understand, yeah, if our words, if our actions don't match our words, um, then nothing else really is going to matter, when it comes to this especially. One of the things that we do when we come to schools and we work with staff, this is this is the component I love more than anything. If you've ever had a tough time getting staff on the same page, what I love to be able to do is create an experience where we walk staff through a process of self-awareness and self-management, because those speak to all of the competencies that we have. And I cannot model effectively those that be on the same page if I don't know what I'm thinking about it and what I'm feeling about it, and in a safe way, disarming all of those things, helping people to have that experience makes all the difference, because then we can see how we're impacting others. If you've been in any of the trainings that I've done, I know Maggie's been with me in some and that sort of thing, and some others like at the prevention conference that we all would probably be going to this week. One of the things I've shared about is when I learned this, and I didn't learn it at the time it happened, but it came clear later on. And I had I'll go through this shortly, but I had a coworker come up to me over 20 years ago, and he said to me, he goes, "Great, can I give you some feedback?" He was getting ready to tell me what I'm modeling. I didn't know that at the time. And of course I said yes. I was feeling like, heck no, I don't want the feedback. And he said to me, he goes, "Greg, you are very judgmental." He didn't say I was kind of judgmental. He said, "You are very judgmental." And of course I just got defensive. I'm like, "What are you talking about? I'm not judgmental. I love people," and that sort of thing. And then he said something to me I'll never forget. This is the thing that has helped me to look at my behavior. What I model must match what I say, because everything I do is going to make an impact. He said, "Greg, it's not your job to figure out if it's true. It's your job to figure out where it's true." And until I started thinking about where was it true that I could be judgmental, I couldn't fully be aware enough to start managing the right kind of behaviors, because that is what speaks so much to people. And it's been a process. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Donna. And it's been a process, and I think every leader should be able to do it. And it's one of the reasons why we do that, because once we get self-aware, now we can manage the right behaviors. If I'm towing the line, I can't manage that authentically, and it's not going to come across, and it's not going to help move social emotional learning. As a matter of fact, I would suggest that our efforts take a little bit of a step back sometimes if we're not doing it genuinely. And it starts with self-awareness. let me ask you this, and I'm going to ask you just to chat this, so we can all see the responses. Do it quickly. First one is, what behaviors or attitudes do you feel make social emotional learning genuine and credible? What make it believe it? Just go ahead and type those in if you would. What are the behaviors and attitudes? This is what we want. Yeah, thank you. Being vulnerable, love it. Keep watching as people, active listening, you believe in what you're doing, self-control, slowing down, reflective. Keep watching as these are coming up. Honesty, genuineness, listening. I would love it if we were in the same room and we could be putting this all on where everybody can see it. Passion, walking the talk, modeling, all those kind of things. As these are coming through, would you go ahead and pick your top 3? You know, maybe somebody helped you to put words to something else you were thinking about. If you're taking notes or anything like that, just go ahead and pick your top 3. And I'm not going to ask you to type these on here. All of these things, caring about others, kindness, confidence, honesty. One of the things I think about is compassion and understanding, and those are our core values. Awareness, perseverance, resilience. Yeah, collaboration. Thank you. So now that you've started picking your top 3, Shauna, continue. Yeah, thank you. We're nearing our 40-minute time limit, and I hope we're not going to get cut off. Um, um, if we get cut off, I apologize. Here's what I'm going to ask you to do. Which one of these for you is non-negotiable? Out of that list that you put together, out of your top 3, what is non-negotiable? And if you don't mind just sharing really quick, what are some of the ways that you go about exhibiting that specific behavior? Where does that happen? How does that come out? If you don't mind sharing.
I'll throw in a verbal comment and say
Please, yeah,
honesty is, for me, honesty has always been one that's non-negotiable.
yeah,
And to just really work to be honest and really be aware of how much level of detail you have to provide when you're being honest, not overly honest, but it has been really a key component of my life that makes me feel like I'm being more authentic to people.
yeah,
Because you never ever have to remember what you said to people in terms of your story.
yeah. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Dodie and Lisa. I love that you said, you know, kindness. Um, the nice thing about modeling behavior, if we're genuinely modeling and exhibiting specific behavior that's going to help social emotional learning move forward, people don't always get to hear what you say. Not everybody can hear what you say at all times, but they can always see it. They can watch that. And it's what we believe genuinely is always going to come out. And that's going to be the consistency that's going to help social emotional learning move forward more than anything. Taking that non-negotiable. Thank you, Jordan. Empathy, reflective listening. Know how they truly feel, vulnerability. Yeah, thank you. That some of the bravest things that we can do, thank you, Jordan, is to be vulnerable, because it's often the most scary. And so we start picking up on that modeling is so important to understand what we believe and understand what it is that we're feeling, what it is that we're understanding, what we're thinking, because our behavior is always going to match that. Tomorrow, if you've ever felt resistance when it comes to implementing formal structures, one of the things I think we can help out with is how do we go about doing that. Modeling is a huge part of it. And then some other specific ways we can help to move forward with vision, because we can't move forward in, I believe, any other way. Here are just a couple closing thoughts about this. Remember, modeling is always going to be culture. It is always going to develop culture. The culture of any organization will only be as good as the worst behavior we're willing to tolerate. And it's kind of that weakest link, kind of a thing. Helping people to be able to believe it is all about vision. The other part is we're always modeling. We're always modeling our beliefs. They're always going to come out. We cannot help it from coming out. So every single thing that we do or say is going to make an impact. Gonna let you know, and we probably don't have time for a whole lot of, well, we might, for some closing thoughts. Does anybody have anything to share before we move on and close out? Just as far as helping us to wrap up what modeling means. It'd probably be quicker if you just wanted to go ahead and unmute yourself. Any other closing thoughts? Because
I'm gonna say that first one there, the culture of any organization will only be as good as the worst behavior being tolerated. Wow, that one hit me hard, because I think that's my biggest problem, is I tolerate a lot of stuff that I shouldn't. And I see it snowball.
Sure. I was kind of, thank you, Maggie. I was not sure whether or not to put that up there, so I'm glad that speaks to you a little bit. The word tolerated was something that kind of concerned me a little bit, because I think the best way of doing it, I don't think, how do I say this? We can't make people see anything that they don't want to see or they're not ready to see. All we can do is create a place that is safe, and I think all that is addressing that with compassion and understanding, and that will slip into tomorrow's as well. But yeah, those things can keep us from moving forward so much if we let some of those things slide. So thank you. As we wrap up, tomorrow we're gonna be carrying this out in the same time tomorrow, because it's gonna go along with it. A couple announcements really quick. So tomorrow, moving forward with vision, it's going to be a really powerful one to be a part of. Also wanted to let you know that next week, we're going to have a panel discussion of some educators that are working with the core lessons across the state of Idaho. And they're going to be administrators, staff, superintendents, and they're going to be sharing their experience with core lessons in their school, what's working, some of the challenges. You're going to hear directly from their candid responses of what would they want you to know, or if you were to join in. So that's going to be, if you were to do that. So that's going to be next week, Tuesday, April 14th. And we would love for you to join us. Want to let you know that there are recordings available of all of these if you just let us know. And then also we have our mood booster moments that are on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. And I know that some of you guys are following those. Feel free to join in with those. We're going to have one for every day of April, just continuing to be a part of boosting the mood of others and boosting our own moods in the process. So very good. So with that, if you have to, Chris has a question we'll talk about, but if you have to go, thank you so much. We might get cut off at 10:30, but I can start another one if people wanted to join in. Just email Kelsey and let her know, and we can start a new one. We have a time limit. So thank you everybody for being a part of this, and we'll keep going until we get cut off. So